to come in here. We got an echo, or are we good? A little bit? Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll give everyone just a second and then we'll get started. Tracy, good to see you. Hey. Hey, hey. All right. Other people can roll through. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Like when it comes to events like these, like the number of live attendees is like not my goal at all, right? And so the benefit of when the attendance is lower, like what's going on right here, are typical. Like one, we can have really detailed conversations and I can help you a lot with your specific thing that's going on. And the second thing is I always find that I produce better content when there are smaller audiences. I don't exactly know why. So I'm pumped about what's happening right now. A couple other things, like I was supposed to do, this would have been my fourth podcast in a row. One got canceled. So I'm coming off of 2 back-to-back podcasts, feeling fired up, talking about a lot of stuff, ready to help people. Some of the, I need that. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. 1 second, people. We got a little bit of technical difficulties. I knew it was echoing. Just go here. All right, I'll keep going. You can fix it if you can fix it. A couple of the key things that have been top of mind for me right now. One of them, I've just been talking to a lot of companies that are they either have a small like target account list, small TAM, or what they're doing is segmenting their customers better and creating a more focused list of companies to go after right now. So if budgets are being squeezed and things like that, companies that have large total addressable markets need to make decisions on who they actually want to go after so they can properly allocate the budget by account. When you have a smaller total addressable market, for example, I talked to a company, they only had 500 total customers they could sell to in the world. And so in that type of motion, like a targeted paid distribution strategy is probably far more effective than posting organic content on LinkedIn, because you only have certain people inside of 500 accounts that you can reach. Additionally, when the account list is small and it's narrow, the cost of advertising is not very high. So you can actually start putting that into specific accounts, which I think is interesting. And then expecting that you have 500 total accounts and you're just going to create demand with them, and then all of a sudden they're going to come inbound. Like I think there needs to be some level of an outbound motion to go out and engage buyers and get meetings, whether that's events. It doesn't have to be, hey, can you have 15 minutes with our SDR? But I do think that an outbound motion to capture and activate demand is critical at that type of TAM or that type of segment, right? So almost every company probably has a top 20 or a top 100 or a top 500, and having a different strategy. A lot of people call this account-based marketing. I do think that it's account-based. I do think that it makes sense for B2B companies to do this. I also think that it's just not driven around the technology. So I think that companies are moving to this. I see one of the most interesting parts of it in companies that are doing product-led sales. It started as a product-led company and now are trying to get their enterprise motion set up, and they've been working with that. So now then it's not just get a demo, there's a free trial. Majority of people are coming through the free trial. They have to identify who those people are, what accounts they're in, and then run certain marketing. So it can be actually acquiring the net new customer. It can be getting a company that has people in the product to actually hit PQA and then drive some type of motion. It could be to expand current customers that already fit your enterprise criteria. I think that is a really interesting motion to play around with as you see companies that have really gotten it right. Miro is one that stands out to me. There's plenty of Calendly. There's plenty of other ones. I think that it's a super interesting space right now. This combination of product-led growth, product-led sales with account-based marketing to create you actually need both. You have a tops down, you have a bottom up, and it's like working both. A lot of companies blend them together and try and have one team do both. And in my experience, it's actually better to have separate teams that are doing those different activities. The enterprise team, which is gold on how many enterprise accounts did we acquire? How much pipeline and enterprise did we create? And you got a bottoms up motion, which is how many users and what cost of acquisition, most likely. So hopefully we get some people to come on live, have some deep conversations. Would love to help. Like I mentioned, I think that having a smaller audience is actually an advantage here. So I'd encourage you, if you have something you want to chat about, then we can talk about it live and help some people.
Brilliant. Yeah. If anybody has questions, things they want to chat about, just drop it in the chat and note that you'd like to join us live, and we'll prioritize you in the queue. To give everybody a couple minutes, we did get a handful of submissions through our HubSpot form beforehand, so we can get kicked off with those. They each come with context. So I'll ask the question, Chris, and then provide context that they dropped in the form, just so we can set the stage for everybody. This person is interested in better analyzing and organizing their qualitative research data. So it says, we're in a good rhythm of doing 3 to 4 customer interviews a month. We currently store notes from interviews, though, in an ad hoc way, like some are stored in a slide deck, some are in HubSpot, some are in random Google Docs, etc. I worry that we're missing potential patterns and insights by not storing qualitative data in a systematic and consistent way. How do you go about storing and analyzing a large set of qualitative interview notes over time from multiple sources?
I would have the interviews recorded by a call recording tool. I would then have AI create transcriptions of all of those things. And then I would push all the transcriptions into ChatGPT or something like that to create sentiment analysis and summarize the data that it's seen. So I would start to use tools to summarize, like ChatGPT is very good at looking at a large set of data and noticing patterns or trends, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. And so I think that using that as a way to summarize and constantly check qualitative data is probably the best approach right now. So that would be my recommendation. Don't trust it 100%, validate the work, use your own best judgment with new tools like this. But I think that's the answer for you.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a couple of years back when we were all doing this and didn't have AI to help out, it definitely became like a backlog where you had some kind of system of organization, probably within Google Drive or something similar. But agree, like leaning into the power of AI would be super helpful to solve the problem of organization and insights there. Next question that we received is also relatively content-based. They're looking to better understand how to determine the core topical focus of a podcast series that they're planning to launch. So the context is this. We provide data protection as a service to founders and chief operating officers in Series A or B tech scale-ups. We have an established base of 50 plus subscription customers. We know from research interviews and speaking with customers that whilst data protection is important to them, it's not necessarily something that they want to talk about or think about all day long. Their core focus is usually on scaling, product, hiring, etc. And so they're asking, how do they determine a core topical focus of the podcast series for that audience?
So when I think about this, the first thing that I think about are like, who are my available resources and what does my target customer care about? And is there a match where our podcast will be a true thought leadership, driving thought leadership type of podcast where our company and our point of view is the main part of the podcast? Or are we going to do something else where we have an interview show where we basically bring other people on, draft off of their audience and expertise, and that becomes the engine of awareness? So deciding, and there's other formats too, but like these are the two core ones that I see, deciding which one you want to be and why, I think is a key decision point. So let's just pretend that that you have a co-founder that has some inspiring story about why they started in data protection, right? It's a weird space. Like somebody had to be passionate about solving the problem to start the company. So what is that about? Let's just pretend that's the case. I would have the co-founder talking. Most likely you have to be talking to, they said CEO, CFO at that, or CEO, COO at that stage. It makes sense. Series A, B, those are going to be the buyers. At a larger scale buyer, you're probably talking CFO or some risk person. And so being able to figure out what does the CEO and the COO care about at this stage, I don't think that you're going to have a lot of success building the data protection podcast. I think you need to have a strategy more around what are the key things that you should be focusing on, or what are the key things that you need to be looking out for. So I might have I'm just thinking out loud here, the mistakes I made as a Series B CEO, and I would have all of the CEOs of Series B and Series C companies or other CEOs on the podcast to talk about the things that they learned, the things that they tripped up on. Maybe it relates to data protection occasionally. So I think that like having some more of a more creative strategy around the podcast than just like information around data protection is the direction that I would lead you toward. I also think that in this specific case, having a VC strategy is a really good idea. So having a strategy, this is quote unquote your ABM strategy, find 50 VCs that invest in that stage, that you already have some of your 50 subscribers are already part of those portfolios, and go engage with those portfolios and try and have some level of an established partnership, because all their companies need it and they understand the risks around it, and you provide a valuable, cost-effective service to address it. So their operators can focus on growing the business, not focused on admin and risk mitigation. So that's, with the context that I have, that's the advice that I have.
No, brilliant. That's great direction. She had actually noted that maybe she was considering being like, 1 degree removed versus being spot on topic for data protection. So you went that direction anyways. Jesus has a great question. He's dropped in the chat. Let me bring him on live so you guys can go a little bit deeper.
Well, can you hear me?
We can.
Jesus.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you, Chris. I've been following you since a lot of time. Glad to hear you. I'm from Chile, South America, so you have reached South America also.
Nice. I'm coming to Peru later this quarter.
Oh, great! Thanks. If you're ever coming to Chile, let me know. I will gladly go and see if you're going to a conference. It will be excited for me to go there.
Okay.
Chris, my question is, I'm currently working on a technology company. We're focused on digital transformation and customer management, experience management, I mean. And my question is, what do you think is the best strategy for a technology company that sells different solutions, since each solution has a different target audience and industry? We work with customer relationship management, employee experience. We have a lot of tools, and my CEO is telling me that we have to focus on every single one of them, but to segment every one of those audiences, it's very, very difficult to me, because if we are going maybe for someone that wants the marketing platform, it's another audience, and we have a lot of audiences that we want to reach, but there's not I don't have like a strategy to go to each one of them and make a content that it's relevant, because right now I changed my strategy on LinkedIn, as you told before. So I'm focusing more on creating content that brings value. So, but we have a lot of people and a diversity of people on my LinkedIn, and so I don't know which one is working.
Yeah. Is the design kind of like a Salesforce model where the entry point is different, but over time you're trying to get the account to use all of the products? Or is that the strategy? Or is it really like product to this company, product to a different company, product C to a different company? It's just the entry point is different, right?
Yeah, the main point is to bring them through the whole like funnel. So if each one of the solutions complement each other. So
Yeah.
uh,
So they can be used singularly. Like you typically want a customer to buy the CRM, or someone's going to buy the CRM, someone's going to buy the data analytics, someone's going to buy this, right?
yeah,
And then
exactly.
over time, you start expanding the account with different features and functionality, quote unquote, products. And then you have like you're deeply penetrated into accounts through cross sell and upsell. So in this case, there's a business strategy called the wedge strategy that I'd encourage you to think about and look at, which is trying to identify what is the number one use case that we have a competitive advantage to win, that's going to get us into the account, allow us to expand from there, and picking one customer, one department, one product line, something like that, and treating that as the wedge. You could also have things in the product strategy that make that product a loss leader, or make that product more attractive to be the first buy, right? So this is not just a marketing strategy, but can be a pricing and overall go-to-market strategy to be able to get the product into the account and then have a path to sell. In 2017, when I worked for the medical device company, at first we were trying to sell, it was products with different extensions and features, and we would sell it to different areas of the hospital, right? So we could go in, and the entry point could be the emergency department, the ICU, the step down floor, the NICU, the PICU, the adult ICU, the cardiothoracic ICU. So we just have our sales rep going in a bunch of different places. Our marketing is sporadic to these different places. And at some point we realized, hey, if we sell we have the strongest value prop into the emergency department. And if we sell there and patients get admitted into the hospital, then the device that they're on will go to the ICU and go over here. And over time, our product will expand naturally because of the choice that we made about how we get in first. And so then we had all our reps, all our marketing, everything focused on net new acquisition in the emergency department, which then allowed us to get the product in, prove its efficacy because we had a strong value prop, and then allow it to expand from there. There's probably some flavor of that you need to work through from a strategic level to figure out what's our easiest entry point that sets us up for expansion. And then after that strategy decision is made, then the tactical work begins. Let's get Jesus off mute.
Yeah, because we're currently, I don't know if you can say the solution that we are working with, the name of it. Well, it's a CRM, and we're currently working with a customer engagement platform. And my CEO has told me you have to look for marketing managers to sell this, but don't forget this. And we also have the contact center cloud. So you have to create, I'm trying to create content for each industry to try to bring as much clients, as much leads as possible, so they are prepared and they know what they want. As you have told us before, they are prepared, and our sales team maybe just bring the phone and say, yeah, I want this. And I'm in that process at the moment, but I don't know if it's working right now.
How many people are on the marketing team there?
We are 3.
3 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many segments, if you had to estimate, how many segment product combinations are you being asked to market against?
Around, I think 9 or 8.
Yeah, let's just say 8 to 9 segments.
Yeah.
Do you have geographical considerations as well, or is this mainly South America or Chile focused?
We're focused on Colombia, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, and Peru. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is not a perfect theory, but my theory is that as you add a segment, you basically double the responsibility and complexity by an order of magnitude. So if you're going after 9 segments, my estimate is that it's 81 times more complex than going after 1 segment.
Yeah.
It's actually an exponential effect. You have different budgets, different content streams, different distribution mechanisms, different buyers, different messaging, different positioning, different expertise needed. It's exponentially more difficult to have 3 people try and be responsible for that. All that you do is you just spread out so that your effort on one segment is 1 divided by 81 toward that segment. Budgets being spread out as well. And so I just, your CEO can ask for this, but I think it's just putting the team at a significant disadvantage of figuring out something that's going to work. But it's a business strategy decision about what are we trying to do. And then it's a counterintuitive idea for some people that focusing on a more narrow set of high fit customers that have a propensity to buy is a more effective strategy than marketing to a very large amount of people that may not have the same level of propensity to buy. It's way more expensive to advertise or to market to a lot of different segments as well. So at 3 people, can't be a huge budget. I'd recommend 2 segments max, but I'd really challenge you to do the bare minimum. It's really product marketing work at the bare minimum level for a segment, use case, customer story, product page. It's product marketing work, not necessarily demand work. Do the bare minimum for a lot of those segments that are needed, run sales enablement, do that type of stuff, and then really focus your demand at your scale at 1 to 2 core segments that you believe have the best, it's not that you believe, that have the best propensity to buy and the biggest upside. And being more focused will allow you to get growth more quickly and then create expansion as the business grows and you have more resources.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks for being here all the way from Chile.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go back to these HubSpot questions real quick. I'll mention again, if anybody has questions, wants to come on live, chat with Chris, riff about anything that's top of mind, just drop it in the chat. We'll bring you on. Otherwise, we'll keep scrolling through these HubSpot questions that were submitted. So Laura says that she's a vertical marketing strategist for a leak detection company. This company specializes in leak detection, specifically in the HVAC industry. She has partnered up with an influencer to help them break into the younger demographic of HVAC technicians. She's curious to know if she should be focused solely on content creation with that influencer. If so, what type? Where would you start? If not, what should she focus on instead now that she's leveraging the insights of this influencer?
Is this a B2B application? Do they sell to small business HVAC?
Small business HVAC.
Yeah, with a hardware product.
Leak detection.
Probably hardware and software combined.
Probably.
Yeah, and probably either a low cost B2B or it's actually a B2B to C.
Right.
The HVAC person actually passes off the cost and sells the thing to the actual home. So it's probably B2B to C. It's cool to sort of people can hear and understand how I go through the assumptions to figure this out. The first thing is what does the business actually try to do? And I think that it is that. And so if it's a B2B to C and you're going after the HVAC person, then you have to convince them that your product is good and that they can make money on it. They're partially a distributor or value-added reseller. And so when you think about that as the content strategy, you probably want multiple influencers of people that are either that own an HVAC company or the actual technicians. Your overall creative or content strategy is probably vertical oriented short form video, given the target age demographic that you're going after. And I would create I don't know how to say it, informal type of, you have some that's hey, I use this and here's how I made money. Hey, here's how I use this and here's how it helped our customers. There's a lot of different micro content strategies that you can have influencer to use. Then I think the unlock here is not only using them for distribution, but by taking it, having user generated content from these people and then pushing that out targeted paid if your cost of acquisition allows. And like, I haven't been like deep inside of Facebook ads targeting in a while, so I don't know what's going on. But like in 2019, you could just basically select HVAC technician between ages of 18 and 27 and hit the whole country using like low cost Facebook ads. I don't know if that's still in play anymore, given iOS 14, Cambridge Analytica, and other things. But there's the TikTok algorithm is probably good enough at figuring it out if the content matches what your customer wants to. And that's what more or less what I would do.
Take a couple steps back, because I think it would be interesting in your train of thought to say, okay, what if we've assumed this isn't a B2B to C? What if it's actually a B2B and they're selling into the company that the HVAC technicians work for? How would you think about it or approach it any differently?
Yep. So like different business model, B2B, we sell it to the HVAC company. The HVAC company then puts it in the customer's thing and uses it as a managed service to detect leaks and either mitigate risk or authorize it, automatically trigger a technician or protect the customer or whatever. But it's not the cost isn't being passed off B2C, and the consumer has no decision about whether or not it's being implemented. It's going in. In that case, I don't see it being all that differently, except for the positioning and messaging that's wrapped around the content. I think that the medium and form of content and distribution are the same. I think that the influences that you've already identified are probably the same. And then instead of positioning it as hey, this is going to help you, well, probably most likely if you're selling B2B, the value prop is the same. This is going to help you somehow generate ROI for your business or provide a better service, but there's going to be some level of an ROI story. You're probably still going to want to have success stories from HVAC people that have installed it, how easy it is to install, what they were doing before they started using your leak detection, the problems that it caused. There's like a lot of ways to wrap that story into short form content in ways that are informational, that are funny, that are there's just a lot of angles to take on it. So it's hard to come up with like, this is the exact piece of content that you should create. But I think that overall direction is the right one for this application.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I feel like HVAC technician is maybe outside of what we normally talk about, but still super applicable. So I also think it's interesting. They've teamed up with One specifically. So I'd be curious to nudge on what their expectations are, how they're setting benchmarking for what success looks like with One in order to fuel the success of, teaming up with 5 or 10. So I think understanding benchmarking up front will also be helpful to unlock that lever. Give me one sec. We've got another great question that came in the chat. Megan, let me find you and ask you to join us live.
Great. Hi, everybody. Hi, Chris.
Megan.
Kaylee. So I'm an operating partner for a PE firm, and one of our portfolio companies is doing a rebrand. They've chosen a name which meets most of the hey, this is a good name criteria. But one I'm concerned about. My background's not SEO. So is their own ability from an SEO perspective. So most of their business is driven by RFPs. This is like government, industrial contracts, like big stuff. So they're not going to be driving a lot of business or, lead generation or anything like that through their website. It's mostly sort of a place to learn about the brand and see testimonials and that kind of thing.
Okay.
However, there are two small, and by the way, the business is regional, right? So they have, this is roofing. And so they're regionally based, and that's what's important in terms of reach. So there's two small companies with very similar names. So when you put in, X services, these two other companies come up, and one of them, which has bad reviews, and one of them, which is a mom and pop sort of shop in Florida. Hey, they didn't trademark the name. We could potentially trademark it, do a cease and desist, but that might not actually work. And, don't want to, that seems ugly anyway. So I'm just saying, how much of a concern is it that, and by the way, I know we could use SEM to increase the ranking of this company's new name, but I'm not sure they have the budget. So
yeah,
it's a huge concern that they're choosing a name. There's two other small, that have similar, names, not exactly the name.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, company over here, hopefully going to be the dominant player in the region for roofing. In the consideration set for this customer, there's two main other ones. One has bad reviews. Let's sort of just like throw that one out. Hopefully we're able to beat them. We have another one that's more small mom and pops. We have a competitive advantage on scale, but they have the same or a similar name because it's generic.
It's the same. It's PAX Roofing and then PAX Services Group. So there's PAX is a common letter.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and then the original company wants to name their company PAX.
Yeah.
Is PAX an acronym for what people are searching for? Like, is it?
No, it's not. It's a play off of the original company's name.
The original. So the original. This is unwinding funny. Okay, so the original company PAX.
No, the original company is Patuxent. So they're using PAX because they're just taking out some letters that sound like that, and that
like
is
a generic pharmaceutical.
It's really hard to spell and say. So they've chosen something that's easy to say, easy to spell. Yay! But again, I'm just wondering about competing with this small mom and pop. Obviously we could do things with metadata, data tagging to make sure they're showing up.
I would just
wondering, is it a concern or not? Like, do we just
name the company a different name? It seems so unoriginal to. I don't know. It feels like there's such a variety of things that you could do. The term is not like some generic category related thing, as I understand it. I don't think this is as big of a challenge or issue. And then if you want to cover when someone searches your competitor, then just buy the competitor keyword on Google and beat them on messaging and positioning and offer.
Yeah.
So like that's what I would do, and I would create a different.
The other thing is the small mom and pop is in residential. This is industrial and government. So again, they're not exactly in the same space. But I'm just like, I want to make sure.
Yeah, and then I have to believe that there's data about upcoming RFPs and government budgets that have been approved that give you early signals to the people that are going to be doing an RFP, and then during a certain time frame.
Yeah.
All those documents are public. So if you don't have a data source to understand that, I would use that for a go-to-market strategy based on upcoming RFPs for people. And you just want to the goal of a business like this is to build a product that gets spec'd in automatically. So that's the long-term goal of the business. If it's just a service, it's harder to get spec'd in because you're delivering. So I'm not sure whether it's product, services, or a blend, but when I was in product companies and we had medical device RFPs, OEM RFPs, things like that, 7-figure contracts, they're putting it into your product. They're going to be a customer for 7 to 9 to 15 years in a hardware OEM model, and they're going to pay you so it's a $15 million TCV. And it's like, we want to go out and win those things. So building a product that they can spec in, as this is the only product that can do that, is one way. Also building relationships with the people in advance of them creating the RFP, and them are different, more of sales oriented strategies, but are helpful in this type of business with a lot of RFPs. Like those parts of the go-to-market are really important. Just having a podcast and doing SEO, you need.
There's going to be no podcast. It's not I don't think there's going to be a content strategy, but I just wanted to make sure that we wouldn't be screwed down the line with SEO if, this name was chosen. But thank you. And very well taken, like finding out what budgets, RFPs are coming up, having more, sales directed relationships with those people early on. Like it's much more targeted. So. Yeah.
And it's one man's opinion on what I would do with the brand name. So it's not like it's my way or the highway, but either way is fine. I just think that it's more simple to do it the way I suggested. But like brand names are what you make of them.
Yeah.
Not the name itself. So I've learned over time to try and expend less effort thinking of the name and a way more effort of making
it work.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. We've got another in the queue as well. Give me one sec. Christian, come on and join us live.
Thanks for having me again.
Glad to have you here.
What's up?
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I've been kind of collecting answers on this topic, but obviously the most recent innovation with SEO and search was, these new AI-enabled search bots, Bing and ChatGPT, and now Google Bard. Those are kind of starting to come out. What is your position on how that's going to be changing things near term? And side question, does this position Bing in a way that's maybe more competitive or more relevant versus Google than they have been in the past?
I think that the moves by Microsoft over time have been very strategic and very strong. The LinkedIn acquisition, this move to grow Bing, we get great, like the search volume is not nowhere near as high as Google, but we get great results on Bing and it's way cheaper, right? It's just a much smaller pool and less scalable. When it comes, like we also from one side see in self-reported attribution, many people reporting that they're seeing now, how did you hear about us? And it's saying ChatGPT, right? So that's never been seen before up until this point as like a new way that people are actually like discovering and learning about things. I don't have a like clear position on how this is going to impact search. I think the shift is from like getting a variety of options to getting the answer. And then the big question is who decides what the answer is? Is it the AI? Is there an advertising engine into it? Are people going to be paying for it? Is it actually going to be a more expensive engine to capture demand than Google because it's just showing one result? The same thing that you can think about that was going to, the same but different. If you ask Alexa, hey, Alexa, I want a pizza, what pizza shop is it choosing for you? It's the same situation, right? Except you're not asking through a voice, you're asking through text or a different way. And it's going to give you back a certain answer. And the question is, how or why does it serve up that answer? And is it in the best interest of the consumer or not? So that's the unknown for me, where I think this gets a little bit, it's unclear how it's going to play out. I think undoubtedly, and this is the reason why all search engines have made this shift, is that we will be more moving to, instead of getting a list of options and clicking through links, to getting the answer. So I think the broad search category knows that they're starting to be in trouble, and there's a big category shift happening from search to answer. And that's why you see Google and Microsoft jumping on this thing as a way to try and win the new category that most likely is going to kill the existing category. That 90% of Google's revenue comes from the existing category. So obviously they're investing in protecting it. But I'd be really interested to understand what you think. You've been asking around, like, what are you hearing from people?
Well, I mean, we've sort of built our company on the backs of our inbound SEO. We are probably have the highest, SERP rankings from any of our competitor analogs in the market. And so we've been sort of closely monitoring it, because obviously any sort of disruption of that's going to be, there's a lot of revenue risk with it. Thankfully, I think from what we've been reading, long term, it's all going to shake out, and the people who've been doing it right for a long time will continue to probably be prioritized in search rankings and things like that. But yeah, in the near term, there's this whole mystery of how are these engines developing these answers? How are they providing? No one really quite knows the right formula of inputs to make sure that your name does show up when you're. And I just did it while you were talking, and for my company or my category, and we're not on that list, right? So I don't think I could go to anyone in the world right now outside of maybe a Microsoft engineer or ChatGPT engineer to tell me why. So it's sort of, I think there's some of that short-term disruption, but I think longer term, as long as we are providing this, we're the sole source of information for our industry. Like, we're the only ones that's providing that information. If it's referencing searches or topics in our field, it's sourcing it from us. I think that's relatively safe for us to be in, but that's obviously not possible for all markets on all categories. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know all that much about the strategy or the business, but I would say that what the takeaway from this situation is that we need to diversify into creating demand. That would be my business understanding, right? We built it a lot on content and search, a lot of demand capture. Now we're looking at how like AI or web and AI enabled search might like sort of change the demand capture dynamics or risk that, right? And there's still an element of like, we need to be doing stuff so people just come to Google and search our brand and go directly to our website and buy from us. So you probably, I don't know, I don't have enough details, but you might have that in place already. But that would be one of my takeaways, is that the same thing for you. There's a lot of companies out there that are primarily SEO companies that have been able to hack Google for a long time to show up and have a good enough strategy, offer, positioning, product to capture a lot of the active demand in the market. And as those dynamics shift, it sort of puts the entire, if you're fully invested or heavily invested in search, it puts the entire engine at risk, which is, it's crazy, right? So I don't know. It's hard to tell what would be happening, but I think having some like focused effort on demand creation is a necessity these days.
Yeah. More tactical, do you think it makes sense to start allocating a larger portion of our paid budgets towards Bing, given the strategic shifts that they could be bringing to the market, just to see what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to demand capture, it should be, what are all of the available places that we can capture demand? How much money should we be investing there? Invest the money, calculate the ROI, and then tune the engine. So like, if you're capturing demand through Google paid search, then I would definitely make an extension to Bing, but you're probably only gonna get 5% of the results, you know what I mean? Or at least 5% of the searches. Maybe you get more results, but lower search volume because the quality is higher.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But then you also have affiliates, you have G2s, you have, there's a lot of other places to be capturing demand. And then just like, so put budget there, capture it, and then tune it from there. I find that a lot of companies just overspend on search. Has been like the main continuous pattern that I see, not necessarily specifically paid search. So maybe you take your budget down on Google a little less, and then you take that 5,000-10,000 a month and you put it on Bing. Like there's possibilities for something like that.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. We've got another question I'll ask anonymously. It's kind of a riff from last week. We covered split the funnel quite a bit. They're saying that they are driving a lot of campaigns right now that are primarily awareness focused. They're generating a lot of inbound hand raisers that are obviously being cited as direct or organic, and then actually end up converting. What's your approach in identifying the spend number to allocate to these types of programs? Based on the way the question is asked, I'm assuming they don't have SRA.
There are a lot of different ways that you can look at this overall, but I like the take home is that there's no perfect science or formula to help you figure this out in a multi-channel complex B2B marketing and sales engine. So I think there's a couple of different angles that you can look from. One interesting angle is just the split of money across the entire go-to-market, not just marketing, that's spent between demand capture and demand creation. So being able to look at those differences, put sales and SDRs most likely in demand capture, and you start to break it off and see here's like the benchmarks of what the impact is. Maybe just by looking at that number, we know that we're spending not an adequate amount on demand creation, which just starts to move money there to tune the engine. Something that like, I guess some people aren't going to want to hear, but it's literally the truth, is that if you're a really good marketer, you don't need attribution data to tell you what's working or not. You know what's working or not. Your customers are telling you, you can feel it. You post content, you see comments, you hear feedback from the sales team, you know what's working. And so there's like a huge element of that, like having a deep enough level of the details and a lot of data sources to have conviction in the strategies that are working and being able to appropriately allocate the amount of budget to hit business financial targets. There's also some other, like you could do a bottoms up analysis and say, okay, we're spending $10,000 a month on LinkedIn. If we wanted to hit every one of our accounts with every one of our key personas 8 times a month at this CPM, we should be spending this much. And so and then you could tune the budget from there based on performance. So there's a lot of different angles to get there, but there's no perfect science. And I don't think using any level of, I think that attribution is best as a directional indicator and not like it's not Google Maps for your go-to-market. It's not going to tell you exactly what to do and where to turn. So it's not a perfect answer, but it's sort of there's a huge level of art that is not respected in B2B marketing that involves interpreting data and then putting together a strategy based on a lot of different qualitative and quantitative data points that you feel is best based on a lot of the company's strategies. So not a perfect answer, but I don't know, Kaylee, like how would you answer that question, right? It's like there's no clean cut.
There's no clean cut. And I think it's like for me, before I joined Refine Labs, going from like being in the weeds of a company that was trying to make the shift from a lead gen model to a demand gen play, it was like, to Chris's point, it was a lot of feeling, right? Like we started having structure internally that allowed us to have, conversations at a certain rate, a certain cadence with our customers, with prospects, with people that were in our customer advisory board, et cetera. And we had all of these qualitative insights coming to us. We also had SRA set up on our form submission so that we could get a better pulse on the market, what was working, what's not working. And we had a lot of direct and organic conversions too. Like I think every company under the sun probably has that if they're just relying on some type of last touch attribution model. And for us, budget was a lot of a feeling. It's like, hey, we know that the podcast is working for us. We had set up a podcast that was relatively low budget, but we were like, okay, well, what will it take for us to 3x or 5x the frequency of this? It's pretty minimal investment, honestly, compared to what we were spending on paid. And so we'd fight for that budget based on the qualitative insights that we had. We definitely didn't have like a formulaic or mathematic approach to be like, oh, it's half the sum of this times 12. Like it just didn't work that way. I'm sure others maybe have some type of more, I don't know, maybe a more scientific approach, but for ours, it was a lot of directional insights that were fueled from qualitative data directly from our customers and from our prospects.
Yeah. This is like a side note, but demand creation, dark social content strategy, like the investment in content is significantly overlooked by companies, right? Like the difference between posting something on LinkedIn to people and having people actually like it versus having the people that are searching, how do I solve this exact thing using this thing, and giving them content for the what they searched for, are two very different content strategies that require different skills and different levels of talent and creativity. And so like it's not just especially in this type of stuff, it's not just the investment in the advertising dollars. There are plenty of companies that spend $300,000 a month on LinkedIn. They deliver bad content and they don't get good results. When if they spent $50,000 on advertising and $25,000 a month on content, they would spend $75,000 total, way less, 33% or less of the budget being allocated, and get way better results because the balance between content and media is properly balanced, because B2B companies have grown up with affiliates and search and other demand capture channels. They do not plan on the scaling of the cost of content as well as media. They just plan on scaling the media dollars. So when you go into a LinkedIn, a Facebook, a Reddit, a Twitter, a YouTube, connected TV, podcast advertising, places like that, they don't find success because they don't invest in, because the content becomes critically important, not just the media dollars, and they don't invest appropriately in creating the content that people, the volume or the quality of the content that's necessary to win there. So like there's companies that I work with that have gotten it down to a science. For every dollar we spend on media, we have to spend 34 cents on content. And then as they scale their budget, they know that they need to be adding designers, video editors, content producers, outsource agencies, new influencers. And as they're able to scale the budget and the channels, they're also appropriately scaling the content engine that it feeds it. All right, Kaylee, let's get one more in if you can. And I've done 3 podcasts in a row and I got to eat something. So
that's a valid excuse. Hold on. Let me ask on this person's behalf. So John said he's on YouTube live calling in from Australia. So mathematically, I think that's 4 o'clock in the morning. So dedicated Australian. We appreciate you being here and listening to us at such a crazy hour. His question is that he said, let's see, following your marketing philosophy when leading with education via live events like this one, how and at what point do we convert that into an actual sale? Can you fill in the gaps a little bit there?
Say that one more time.
Following your marketing philosophy when leading with education via live events like this one, how and at what point do we convert that effort to an actual sale?
So you have marketing activities, which are typically activities that are not focused on, or maybe demand creation activities is a better frame of this, that you have activities that are not focused on driving some specific conversion or direct outcome. Then you have some activities that are demand capture, where you're actually trying to like take demand that's been created and convert that into a sales opportunity and then convert it into a customer. So I would just consider this you have to look at what are the different ways that we can capture demand. When people are searching on Google, are they landing on our website? Are we having appropriate messaging? When people are looking for customer reviews, what's happening? When people are searching inside of communities and asking for recommendations, are we the one being recommended? When our buyers are at events, do we have the right data to be able to move them into processes? And then finally, how do we use the intent, assumed or actual data of our customers to trigger some level of outreach to that customer that's appropriate for the intent level that they have, which could be intro meeting. It could be talk to a customer that's already had success that you know of. It could be attend our, webinar about our new product launch. So there's a lot of different, I think that's really what you're asking. At what point do we do hey, Chris, I love your webinars, but at what point do we do outbound sales, right? Because the people that are coming to our events aren't filling out the form on our website. What should we do? At some point, you got to figure out who's the ICP, what are the signals that we're looking at inside of that ICP to determine that we're going to actually go and engage. And then what are the activities that we're going to do? So we're not just like, hey, Tracy, saw you were at our webinar this afternoon. You want to meet with our sales team today now? So you're not doing that. You have to figure out what the appropriate actions, next steps, and triggers are to actually go outbound. So it's more of a framework or a way of thinking than an actual thing of what you're supposed to do. But that's what I would think about. I don't know. We got a lot of people on these events that have been coming to these events for a long time, and there's never a person at my company that went to them and was like, hey, when you've come to our events now for 6 months, you ready to buy something now? Got enough of our free content, you ready to buy something? It's just not it's the strategy of the event is to create awesome content for long form and short form distribution. And that's where we get the revenue impact, so that I don't have to sell to the people that are here. So it's just a different strategy.
That's what I was going to say too. And I think it's a good point that if you're going into the mindset of producing live events, but it says that they're educational events, but your question is how can we get sales directly from these? Those are 2 very different objectives that will show up and be very obvious in how you approach and frame your event. So you can't have both, and it's going to be really hard to try and do both in the same 30-minute setting, right? To show up and truly educate authentically with the intent or objective of like bringing awareness to whatever it is you're trying to educate your audience on, and then also try and quickly close them on a deal. Like those are two very different activities.
Cool. We had questions from Australia, Chile, all over the world. Where Revenue Vitals Live is going global. I also see a bunch of people that are regulars, so it's great to have you all here. Stay tuned. We might be doing some updates to the event, the topics, how we overall are doing this. So stay tuned for some updates. But in the meantime, we'll be back here Tuesdays, same time. So we'll see you here next week. Appreciate all your support. Appreciate the engagement. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to get better. And can't wait to see you next week. And we got Denmark in the house.